a huge part of me would love for this to be a situation where multiple artists are able to work together on the video, or I mean on video or through Zoom. But then also, I'm also seeing that the one-on-one interviews work really, really well. Work really, really well. Like it becomes like it allows you to open up and just express who you are as a person.
Yeah, I can see the benefit of both. The only other times I've ever used Zoom has actually been with other artists doing portrait sessions.
Mm-hmm,
So I have a drawing group that meets once a week, and we didn't want to stop meeting once a week, but obviously we don't want to be anywhere near each other.
yeah.
So
I love you, but don't touch me.
yeah, so we've been meeting over Zoom, and we just
Yeah,
flip from person to person.
yeah, yeah.
So like every artist is a model, and it's been working well.
Nice.
Like the work is somewhat limited, especially for me because I'm working off a cell phone in a car, so it's a bit. But it's been like when this started, I did I was in the middle of a gallery show
Uh,
actually. So we were in a group show.
okay.
The group show kept going, and then and I it wasn't people weren't in panic mode yet until like the last day, so it was just a Thursday to Sunday show, but by the
Yeah,
Sunday people were like, okay, like, I didn't want to take the TTC, I didn't want to be there.
yeah,
Really
yeah,
fortunate not a lot of people came, so we could
yeah.
kind of keep doing it. But I started doing drawings of it was a show, it was a group show, but I was doing it was at the
Like,
Gladstone Hotel. I do these shows a couple times a year, and my room in the Gladstone was with my brother, so I did a bunch of drawings of my brother at like
yeah,
super close, because he's my brother, right? I love him.
yeah,
And then strangers, I'd like literally put them in a corner. I was like, okay, I'll stand in this corner and you stand in that corner, and I'll draw you from a distance with a bunch
oh,
of
no
stuff
way.
in between. It was cool. I mean, it it helped me deal with the like feeling of not wanting strangers around me, and
Yeah,
it
yeah.
helped me feel connected to people without them being in my space at all. um but it was, I don't know, it was definitely different. Like the perspective was definitely different. um so it's been interesting, like drawing in different mediums, drawing at different distances. Like it does definitely change your perspective. I mean, I know that's a really basic thing to say, but like
Yeah, yeah,
you must be noticing it too, right? Like how many times have you done interviews over like Zoom,
yeah.
and then there's like, I don't want to say there's good things about it, but like you do discover angles or ways of doing things that make more sense.
Hmm.
I don't know. Have you been finding that? Like, have you been finding that it in some sense adds, but not as much as it subtracts?
Yeah, it's been weird. Like it's been weird. Like I always had a plan to kind of do this, to
Yeah.
do like have a video element to creative UTL. And a lot of the reason is because I know that a lot of art at this point sells online, right? Like
Mm.
so, what happens is a lot of people will impulse buy online. So I've always had this thing where we want to do video, and but we want to make sure that we have the gallery element or the exhibit element. The problem was that the exhibits take out so much energy that I wasn't able to do videos.
Mm.
And so this is allowing for us to, the COVID is allowing for us to do videos. But at the same time, it's like I hate the stress that it's causing though. Like it's causing like a different stress that haven't felt in a while. Like it's like I'm grounded.
Yes. Oh, that's good. I
Yeah,
I mean, I'm missing my caregivers because
yeah,
my
yeah,
parents look after my kids. I mean, also the schools are shut, but like I don't need that much time away from my kids. I like them a lot.
yeah,
And I can schedule around them, and I like the time with them.
yeah.
But like it's that like after a week you're like, okay, they need to go play and they need to be outside and I need to not be around them.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's only so much like nice mommy I have
Yeah,
in
yeah,
me.
I get it.
Like I need art. Like I need to produce art or I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
mentally functional. Like I know this about myself. This is like um so not being able to just like make, and I'm like barely ADHD. Like I'm diagnosed ADHD. It's like moderate now, but it's also like it was worse when I was younger. It's embedded into the
Hmm.
way that I operate.
Yeah,
So I don't focus a lot anyway, and I do a lot of little projects. So
yeah,
not
yeah.
having like time to plan is it's creating a lot of little projects. Like it's not like I'm not drawing, but I'm not producing. I'm just not producing. I'm not producing on like a level that makes sense, that has like, yeah, it's not a good feeling. It's like a, and it mimics depression, right? Having to stay in a room. Like I have
Yeah,
friends who don't leave their rooms because they're depressed, but now
yeah.
that's everybody. And like it it's like everyone around you is depressed, and they are. Like it's not like you can do all the things that a depressed person would do and be like okay. So even
Hmm.
if I were like 100% okay, I think I'd still be feeling it, but that I worry for people who just were, you know, pleasantries with coworkers and nice walks in the park were the sort of the line between them and depression, and that those things are like they don't have those anymore. It's like they're missing their medicine.
Yeah,
It's brutal for people.
yeah, it is. It is. It is. It can be like I would imagine. Like I suppose you're more introverted. Is that it? Like you're more introverted, so you need some you time. You need time to recharge your batteries and
Um,
get your
I
mind together.
I think in terms of work, I am like
Okay, okay.
when I was, so like the last job I had where I was working with other people, I literally built myself a cubicle, like on a desk in an open space, and I had a
Hmm.
light box, like just a large light box. I was just shooting small, like product pictures,
Yeah,
and I moved my light box so it would block the other people. Like I'm not as much introverted as I'm very easily distracted.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
ADHD is like impulsive, like you can't lose focus.
yeah.
And I don't have the ability to like zone in. So like, you know, if my baby wants my attention,
Oh,
um,
yeah,
it, like it's not like I can just give him the thing and then go back to what I'm doing. Like
yeah,
everybody
yeah,
has a workflow, and I feel it more intensely, I think, than, I mean, some people are just better at handling it than I am, but like I'm finding myself producing what basically amounts to like clip art. Like I
hmm,
can make a little drawing, and then
yeah,
I maybe it relates to some other little drawings, and I've got a page full of little drawings, but like it's not one polished thing.
yeah,
I
yeah,
need
yeah,
like 8 hours to produce like a 6x6 mixed media drawing. Like I need 8 hours, kind of no breaks.
yeah, yeah,
And then I got a piece, and it's, you know, it's a piece. It's like you may or may not like it, but I've worked it to the point where I either like it or I'm done with it. I don't never
yeah.
want to see it again. Um, so like, and then there are artists who need like, I mean, I know that there are people who are locked inside their homes right now who are so happy about it because like they don't have the obligation to do the things that distract them. But
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you're with other people, it's pretty mental.
Yeah, I would imagine like at this point, because there is this rhythm that you follow with two people, right? Like or with multiple people. Like you know, at this point you're gonna be by yourself, but then now all of a sudden there's no off switch, and you know, and I understand what you mean with when you're explaining your situation with the kids, uh, with the kids. Like yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, like we'll survive. I'm thinking that as soon as they take off the bans, that we're gonna have such a long party. Like we're gonna party for like a week straight. Like people are gonna be on the streets celebrating and
I
making
think so.
music.
If we're clear of it, but I think what's going to happen is they're going to. I know. Okay, so that's a possibility. Another possibility is that they are like, okay, you can now go visit your family and your friends and have, you know, your kids can have play dates, but like let's not have a party anywhere. Let's not do anything like big for a while. Let's
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
because I mean, the reality is this is now, we need a vaccine because um, it's not going away. Like, I don't think we're going to globally stamp this thing out.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it's gonna, I mean, it's gonna, unless we can just routinely shut down for 2 weeks, which it's gonna flare up again. So the thing to do might be to go on, like, just to be a dork. We're on red alert right now. Like, there's a
Mhm.
yellow alert where everyone's still on alert, but they're resuming their daily schedule, and they're not just like looking for whatever Vulcans that are attacking. Like,
Definitely.
I think we're gonna go down to yellow alert, but or maybe we're on yellow alert, but still, like, I think we're gonna go down a level, but I don't think that we're gonna get to like, oh yeah, everything's
At zero.
fine. Yeah, there's no way, because like, how much do you believe? First of all, I don't believe the numbers coming out of some countries, like, oh yeah, we fixed
Oh,
it. Yeah, no one's buying that. And nor do I really blame them for like not wanting to cause panic, right?
yeah, yeah,
um
yeah.
but like, um so like in Iran, they're now having problems with people, like, with cures that don't work. Like, it has to, like, there's these other problems that come out of it. So like, are we all going to have a party if, like, 10% of us don't have jobs? Like,
Yeah, that's crazy. That yeah, it is. Like a lot of us, like I'm thinking about all these things too. These things too. My estimates is that like I'm thinking that it's gonna sort of go away by the end of summer, but then it's gonna come back in the winter harder because a lot of doctors are saying that the winter incubates the virus even better. It's been like I'm seeing a whole bunch of different scenarios, and a lot of them don't look well, sadly. But we're gonna get through this. But yeah, I have a list of questions to ask. So the list of questions that I had sent you before, or that I was showcasing to the interview. So what I'll do is I'll start off. Well, I shouldn't even say that, but whatever. It's like let's start off with who are you and what do you do?
cheers. I'm Nicole Little. I'm how do I describe myself? I'm Armenian and British, but
Hmm.
completely Canadian.
Yeah,
So I mean, I guess I speak British a bit, but I
yeah.
don't, in case people are wondering where I'm from, in terms of my parents. Um, I'm Toronto based. I'm
Okay.
really attached to this city, and I'm a mixed media artist.
Yeah.
So it's taking me, I mean, it's not a bad way to describe me that I'm an ADHD artist. It's so influential on what I do. Not being able to focus on things, I can hyper focus on art. So that's part of what I do. Another big part of what I do is I take things that don't have a lot of worth and I bring worth to them. So that might be taking like a discarded lottery ticket and drawing a portrait on it. Um,
Nice.
it might be recently I've been really interested in sort of forgotten deities, um, or deities that are not, we don't talk about here in
Hmm.
Canada. So some of the deities that I'm interested in are like super popular and still worshipped in lots of places, but
Yeah.
I'd never heard of them. So and then there's others that are gone, that nobody worships anymore, and um, they're sort of discarded, and maybe they were replaced by someone else. Um,
Mhm. Yeah.
so that's like I like taking things that don't have value and putting value back into them. It's a self-esteem project. I think there's a lot of projection that goes into that. So that's sort of who I am as an artist. Um, and I'm mobile would be another way to think about the way that I make art. So I'm very impulsive. So I start creating art wherever I am, as long as I have a pen and something to draw on.
Nice.
Um,
So you take basically as an artist you take things that were discarded and you bring value to them.
I infuse that when I can. I infuse value back into um, things that aren't as valued, or I take models from sort of like ordinary citizens, and I find beauty in them.
Nice.
It's
Nice.
it's
That's
interesting. Yeah.
well, well,
It's
well, no, I was saying that's what being an artist is, right? You find something and yeah, like you say, you bring value to it. You bring a story to it, and it's something that someone may have like they didn't see it before, but you see it, and and that's what separates a lot. That's what would separate you from a lot of other people. Who from a lot of other people in general.
Again, sometimes I notice the value that we, so this is like a new development. I've started taking usually deities, but doesn't really matter. I've started taking symbols and deities and wrapping them in plastic.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and that work it's new, but it's just a reflection on the fact that we pretend that we don't see value in plastic and that we
Hmm.
pretend it's beautiful,
Yeah,
but it's been manufactured to make us love it. Like it's
yeah.
somebody who's trying to sell you a product. So I have a piece right now, which it took me a long time to it took me a long time to think of and not a lot of time to actually put together. But it's a crucifix and it's wrapped in plastic garbage bags.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
saw those. Yeah.
and it's large. For me, I don't usually work on that scale, so it's not that large. But that's not about putting value into the cross.
Hmm.
It's also not about taking value away from it. It's not like a condemnation of religion or anything like that. But
Yeah.
it's about noticing that we've done something here. That we make plastic crosses. We make plastic things that we worship. We have this relationship with plastic where we cover the planet in it.
Yeah.
Um, and it's about noticing that and pointing it out in a way that I hope other people will notice as well. Like we have this love affair with plastic, and it's sort of what everyone's doing all the time, but we don't admit it. There's like a hypocrisy to the way that we, um, even there's a hypocrisy to the way that religious people go about their lives.
Hmm.
And again, that's not a condemnation of someone. That's not saying like, oh, you shouldn't be religious or you're not really religious. It's just, I think it's part of an artist's job to communicate with everybody.
Hmm.
Um, so it's part of my job to communicate with people who love the Christian God and to have a conversation with them about plastic and the environment.
Yeah.
And those are two heavily loaded symbols, and putting them together is not like the most beautiful visual thing. It doesn't make me like brilliant or anything like that, but it's
Yeah.
part of my responsibility as an artist to, when I think of something, produce it, and point it out to people.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
that's a new aspect of what I find myself doing. And then what happens is I like it when people like my art. So when I make something that has like a controversial element to it,
Yeah.
I know I'm not making it so that people are gonna be like, oh, that's a really well done, hyper realistic painting. You're brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that I'm not doing that, but at the same time, as an artist, I'm like, I hope they like it. Like, I'm very,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I still want that, even though that's not what I'm producing. Being an artist is an exercise in lowering and raising your self-esteem. So you just have to separate yourself from that. But you sort of, I don't know. I personally feel it. It's a competitive world. I'm not a competitive person.
Hmm.
So.
No, no,
So
I
I
get
haven't
it.
talked to a grown up in a while. I have a partner. I talk to him, but
Yeah.
I haven't had a conversation in a while, and I realized how rusty my conversational skills are because I'm just
Ah,
talking about
ah.
myself endlessly.
Don't worry. You'll get it. You'll get it. You'll get a hang of it. There's gonna be more questions, and you are doing a great job right now. So you're doing a great job right now. Like and I get it. Like, I suppose like the big thing, whether they like it or not, from what I'm hearing from your art, what's important is that they are speaking about it. Right, like so, someone that goes, "Oh, I hate this." Like, there's obviously gonna be people who love, who are religious, who are gonna be like, "I hate this" or whatever. But then the fact that you're putting plastic around it brings a new level of thinking that they may not have had before, right?
Yeah. I definitely had, my brother is really religious, so I had a lot of conversations with him about that piece, because
Yeah.
it's not that I wouldn't do it if it was offensive to him. It's just I would I have no interest in insulting someone. Like
No.
that's not. It's fine. There's art that is meant to insult you, and like it's, you know, there's shock comedy, and there's like, and I totally think we need those things. I'm very pro free speech. I mean, everybody has a limit, right? I'm not free like violence. I'm not, but and free expression in a lot of ways. But that's not what I'm trying to do. So that was another. But like I just, I would have been really upset if he was like super insulted, and if I. You know what? I actually don't. I think it's not about offending. It's about hurting people. It's not a piece that is meant to hurt anyone.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I wish we'd wake up.
That's what you're trying to do. Is you're trying to wake people up? Is that it? Like that's really what the crux of the reason why you do your artwork.
That's that piece. And it's a few other pieces. I've noticed like. I don't need every piece to have a big message. So that's one that has a mess or a lot of messages actually, because it's anytime you tap into symbols, you can't say, oh, the piece means this. I'm the artist and I know best. It's just like, you know, I have not got the ability to pull every amount of meaning out of a crucifix, let alone a crucifix wrapped in garbage bags.
Yeah.
So that piece was on display recently, and sort of like during the beginning of this crisis. So I did get like some feedback on it, and there were people who felt like I was talking about the Catholic Church in particular and the scandals that they've gone through, which was not which just wasn't the purpose of the piece, but it was. I totally understand those associations are there. And then there were people who talked about how, you know, we were wrapping the world in plastic, like that understanding kind of came through. And then once the crisis was like on, someone mentioned to me that they felt like it was protective, like wrapping the.
Oh, no way.
See, I didn't put that in the piece. Like the symbols are so loaded that when you play with large symbols, like that's what, like the design for the crucifix by a million billion artists who have come before is inherent in that piece, and all of their meaning is in it too. I mean, so yeah, no, that was a weird, because she was right. It felt like it felt protected from us in a sense, and the air in the room.
That's crazy. That's a dope interpretation. Like that's a dope interpretation. It's fascinating to see that. Like I think that's what's important though. Like as the type of art that you're making, is that the fact that people, will come up with their own interpretation of it. Like beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? So
it depends on how much detail you put in a piece. Like if I draw a detailed photo, like if I take this conversation and the whole time I'm drawing, and at the end I turn around and I show you the piece that I've created, and it's a fairly realistic version of your face, then my dad's messaging me, then there's not a lot to interpret there. Right? Like the more realistic, the more detail, the more the artist's point of view, and the viewer doesn't really, like, what are you going to say, that it's a picture of someone else? Like if I get the details right, then it's only you. The vaguer the details, the more open to interpretation it is.
Definitely.
That's like a Scott McCloud thing. I didn't invent that idea. He's a cartoonist, and he explains like a happy face or a sad face is sort of like you can project yourself onto it. But then if you take that just to edge it a little bit further over, when you're dealing with a symbol, like a symbol is like a cross is a great one. It just comes so loaded with your interpretation of it already.
Definitely.
So text messages from my dad aside. We can't use his
Uh,
backyard. I'm gonna have to follow up with that later. Darn it.
no worries. No worries. If anything, if you want to follow up, I can always edit it out for you. Like I can edit it
Anyway,
out of the video.
it's the video is your art, so however it makes sense for you to edit it.
Definitely.
How's,
Well, I
how's
think
that coming? Are you doing
no. You know what? Like it's so weird. Like I can create a very polished product, and we would look like robots. Or we can have a product like this where we're actually human beings and we're making mistakes and we're trying to figure things out. And I think that people, like one thing I always tell a lot of artists is, we should show our flaws. We should show that we're human beings because it allows for people to relate to us. And therefore, they would want to buy into our artwork more, into our work more, as opposed to being this polished, robotic thing where we're separated from humanity itself, and now we got to uphold this image, this polish, this image of polish and stuff. So you are working on the classes right now. So describe to me your creative process.
Oh, I just start doing stuff like and I push my way through. So like I don't have a great ability to plan. And so like if I'm assembling a piece of IKEA furniture, like I might crack open the manual just to be like, okay, like I didn't already make this. It's not like a free form thing. But if I have an idea in my head of what I'm going to do, it's really hard for me to set aside time and plan it.
Yeah.
So I'm more likely to I'll do sketches. If it's a big piece, I'll do sketches. But I'll come up with some ideas and then I'll work through the ideas. And then so for me the process looks a little bit like I'll have some planning, I'll start putting the thing together, and then I'll come across a point where my planning has stopped. So I have a large paper mache sculpture of Asasaya, whose name I'm probably not pronouncing right. And I constructed it. It's a pretty simple construction, and the design is already out there in sculptures. So I made my own version. I constructed it. I had some planning involved. I used Pringles boxes for her neck and inner structure, so she wouldn't. I thought if she's going to fall down at some point, it'll be the neck. So let's make sure that doesn't happen. And then I covered her in newsprint. I sort of made her out of cardboard. I covered her in newsprint. And I kind of liked it. And then I spray painted it. And then this is a very normal part of my process. And then I hated it. And I was really upset. And I thought, this is disgusting, horrible. Like, what have I done? This is somebody else's thing. And I've appropriated it and I've made it worse. This is disrespectful. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Let me put it aside. Let me not touch it. And then after that, like, depressive dip, I came back to it. And I had an idea for another project. And I applied the idea for the other project to that one. I said, I loved this piece at some point. I loved it in concept. I liked the way it looked with newsprint. I'm going to start covering it in newsprint again. I'm going to work it back to the stage I wanted. I'm going to work out the flaw, because the spray paint made like the texture really obvious and really unattractive. And then I started, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to cover it in product. Sassy as she's a harvest god. So I wanted to cover her in like harvest products. So the newsprint that I was using was like grocery section advertisement. Okay. And I sort of liked it. And then I started putting I'm forgetting that Bayer makes a product. Bayer Monsanto is sort of was my target here. So I started putting together like candy wrappers. Layers of candy wrappers, and then I started to like the way it looked, and then I invested in it, which means like I spent a little bit of money to get like the candy wrappers I wanted, and then I kept coming back and forth to it. I visited it every day. That was a project I did at my parents' place, so I would visit it every day and put in sort of 6 hours with it. and work through it, and then leave and come back and have that space to think about it. And I took photographs of it and I looked at it, and my process was more developing something that I liked. But for me, for a lot of the times, for the work that ends up being the most significant to me, there's like that failure. Like I have to drive the project into the ground, and struggle with it and fight it back to something that I have a loving relationship with. I have to fall in love with the piece, and I get like upset. I have to work through the failures to get any kind of success. Like I work a lot with marker, and for those pieces, like you can't really fail. You can't really erase. You can fail in moments and cover it up and fix it, but it has to be clean. And those tend to be like more realistic pieces, because if it has to be perfect and clean, like every line has to make sense as you're doing it and you can't erase it, then that process is just work through and don't make any mistakes.
Yeah.
But like, I like those pieces. They're fun. They're nice to look at. I'm not hyper realistic because I don't have the patience, or maybe I don't have the talent, who knows, but I don't aim to be hyper realistic, but I aim to be like fairly realistic in my work, and I want things to look nice for that kind of work. But it's not art. It's just, there's more craft involved in that. It's more about putting together a pretty picture. Whereas like, if I'm trying to make a point, there has to be a struggle for me. For some people, I know they can just do these things and they're monumentally inspirational, and they affect people and they make you think and all that stuff. But for me, I have to think through the process. It can't just be, if I'm trying to just present an idea, then I find it ends up being kind of shallow. Like I have to find my way through the idea and grapple with it, and come to a point where it doesn't make sense to me, and I have to make it into something that makes sense. And I just find those pieces are better.
Definitely.
But that's, I mean, it's just a matter of accepting that you're going to fail on a couple levels before you achieve a level of success, even within a piece. And then also as an artist, I don't know anyone who just like, I want to be an artist, and then they're super successful.
Yeah. It doesn't always work that way. It's like success is, overnight success takes 10 years. So that's the whole thing. And I'm watching your creative, like I'm watching one of, I believe on your website, you have the frame and stages, like where you're showing some of your creative process. Oh, and then there's actually more. And it's mixed with the class. I don't know if you can see it on your side.
Let me see. Which piece do you look? I see Creative Unicorns, but I don't.
Okay. No, I am looking.
Oh yeah, for sure. That was a piece I struggled with like crazy.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. That piece is so unpopular. I love that piece.
Yeah.
So that's just like a very personal. With that piece, I found a design in the EGO. No, in the ROM.
Okay.
And it's a medieval cross, and the frame, the cross wasn't part of the piece. The frame was what I liked. I liked these stones and these flowers, and I just thought it was really simple. I thought I could replicate it, but I also I did some sketches and studies of it, and I was like, this is really complicated. Like the way it doesn't just go like this piece, like A, B. Like there's a scheme to it. And then I copied the scheme, and I was like, wow, that's like an idiot. I feel like medieval people are really could figure these things out. Like, so then I copied the scheme, and then I learned from, which was amazing, learning how to take what looks like an ABAB pattern, and make it fit into a rectangle where there's the same number on each side. Elongating certain pieces and making some things bigger and some things smaller. And then, so I did that, and I built up some layers, and then I did this trim, and I ended up having, so there's that moment where I realized when the piece was done, I had that's an Armenian cross inside. So I had the cross inside the piece, and I had this, I had liked it, and then I put the trim on, and then I realized I didn't like the border, and I had to take it off. Like rip it off and then fix it. And you're dealing with paper, right? So if you rip it off and fix it, maybe you'll just rip it apart. Like that moment where you're like, I don't like this piece, but I put so much time and effort into it. Like, how can I erase and risk ruining it? And then to do it and to have it be in my mind, successful. I liked the way that the piece ended up. And then to be able to give that piece to someone who had been so helpful to me and my family, because it's a card, and I feel like cards need to be given to the people they're made for, for the piece to be complete. To be able to do that and have had that piece worked out, and then I replicated that piece a few more times and gave it to some other people as well. But that first piece was a struggle. I had to hate it and come back from it.
Oh yeah, you're coming up with it. Like it's beautiful. I find it to be so beautiful, and I'm noticing now. Yeah, it is a card. And I would assume that every single card, even though you created this exact same design, looked different from each other. Is that true, or?
They do. So that piece, there's a family friend who, she's not Armenian, but my mom has always described as being sort of like an honorary Armenian. Like they were friends in high school, and she's just always been there for my mom. And then she's some really generous, and she and her husband as well are just really generous, wonderful people. And they listen to you and they care about your life. And then I thought, well, this is an Armenian card for an honorary Armenian. I might as well make Armenian cards for the other Armenians that I know. So for my mom and my brother and my aunts as well. And I thought, okay, that makes sense. And then I usually around Christmas time, I do cards, personalized cards. So for everyone who I didn't think would want a cross, I did a Christmas tree. And those were super fun because I just glued beads. And so art can be fun and crafty too. But that first card, it took me months to do.
Wow.
Which is weird because it's so simple. And then when you're done, this is part of the struggle as well. When you're done, you have a $20 product. That's like anytime you make like a card or something that has a craft value to it, there's a market value to a card. And it doesn't matter that it meant a lot. And it was that's part of my struggle, is to be like, okay, I have to make products. Like the things that I make can't just be because I like them. If I want to sell them to people, or I want people to appreciate them and have them in their homes, and for them to have a lifespan other than, a season. So that's a struggle because I am not monetarily minded. What would you, I don't know what the phrase for that is.
I guess it's weird. Like I think art is priceless. Like you can't actually put a monetary value.
It costs very little.
Right? Like you can't put a dollar value on art. Like you've been working on it for weeks, but that's your soul, that's your spirit, that's your mind in going into it. Right? Like it's not just a product. Right? And what's happening now, or what social media is turning things into, or what we have to do in order to survive, is we have to start thinking business minded. And I find that a lot of artists, and it was very surprising because I used to not speak with artists. I used to just do art shows, and I would have the artists there and not really get into their mindset and I would be thinking a lot of them should be business savvy, but they're not. Right? And that's the thing with artists, is like we're creating art for the sake of expression, not for the sake of trying to monetize it. And I find that what is happening is the reason why there are artists that do make money is because, they just happen to fall into that timeline of where their art is popular.
There's luck, but there's also like I know successful artists, and the persistence is huge, and they tend to be people who they're persistent but a little uncompromising in their style. Like they don't just like if you want to be a graphic designer, then you should have a point of view, but also you should have a flexible point of view. If you want to be like a fine artist, then you probably are better off sticking to your point of view. But they're just like so persistent in their style, and then they do it for so long that they become kind of undeniable. Even the people I know who are like younger than me who are successful, I was gonna say my age, but that's not that impressive anymore. Younger than me who are successful fine artists are like they've been doing it for like 20 plus years in
Yeah,
a
yeah,
pretty serious way. Um, so like the people I notice that really struggle, this is just me being sad, but like I know single women and I know married men with kids who have a partner who does their share of the child rearing, but like having kids and wanting to be a fine artist is like good luck. Like the amount of like time and energy it takes to like get into your zone and work a full day at art and then like have time and have someone to look after your kids if that's what you need. Like if I didn't have my parents helping me, I could not be an artist. And then I just think about, you know, people I know who like have kids and have ambitions to express themselves and have lots of creative things to say. It's just like we
yeah.
don't have, there's no chance. It's not happening. Like if you
No
don't have a
time.
support system to take your kids off your hands, like
Yeah.
it's not happening. Unless your kids are like, you know, they hit a certain age, you can be like, you go read a book, get out
Yeah,
of here,
yeah, yeah,
go enrich yourself.
yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, it's limiting. It's really limiting.
No, I get it. It's a blessing. There is blessings in there as well. But I also understand that the limits of it. Like you gotta take care of your kids, which are who are art pieces of their own,
Mm-hmm.
growing up and things like that. Personally, I don't have kids, so I may not like be able to super relate. But I do understand. Like I do spend a lot of time in isolation in terms of like, okay, I need to create something, so therefore I have to come up with it. So I understand it from that angle. From that angle.
It's
Uh,
a good choice, right? Like I chose to have kids and I chose to be an artist. I just made two choices that don't necessarily go together
mhm.
for like in a practical, no stress sense. But like nobody ever told me it was going to be easy to have kids and nobody ever told me it was going to be easy to be a fine artist. So
Yeah,
like, there was never a guarantee of success. And obviously, once you're responsible to other people, the priority is not messing with your kids. So, you know, it's my own bed. It's definitely 100% my own bed. And I just, you know, I thought I'd complain for a minute because,
ah, ah,
cool. Yeah, it's a
no
lot.
worries, no worries. No, you're making beautiful art though. Like this is beautiful. Like I don't know if you can see what I'm seeing on my screen. But like it ha- it has so much beauty to it. It has so much soul. Like like some people make flat art. Like we look at it once and then it's like okay, nice. But yours, you can see the spirit. You can see the emotions uh, coming through the art as well. Right? Like, and I'm watching like especially the self-portrait ones. That you can actually see the spirit of the people, and to me that's beautiful, like especially this one that I'm looking at now.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. That's so that so that image is in Toronto.
Yeah,
It's a Bell mural box. I've done two of those.
nice.
And they're both flawed because they both are. If you look at the close-ups,
Yeah,
I hope that people feel the way that you do. I hope when people come closer and they see portraits and they feel connected. I wanted to connect to communities. I like design too, but I
yeah,
wanted to connect to um, individuals that I know and people from the community. So I did a lot of portraits. If you take 10 steps back from those pieces, they become a bit of a mess because my organizational skills and my composition. So one of the things I've done to correct my composition is just to start hanging out with my brother. He's really good at composition. He's
nice.
crazy good at composition.
Yeah.
Um, Shout out to Mike Little. You're a genius.
Uh-huh.
And um, an, another one of those things that I'm doing is just to acknowledge that you can't do everything yourself and to rip off other people's compositions. So like there are masterpieces that are like 7,000 years old. You can totally take a composition and
Yeah.
put your own work into it. That's okay to
Mhm.
struggle with something. So like because of my lack of planning, I also because I hyper focus when I'm doing art, which is somewhat unusual for me in terms of thinking. I tend to get really caught up in some of those details.
Yeah, yeah.
When I'm drawing faces, I tend to fall in love with the face that I'm drawing, and I don't mean that in a sexual way.
No, I get it.
I do, whoever I'm drawing, sometimes I start off thinking like, oh wow, this person's so beautiful. Sometimes I start off thinking like, I guess I'll draw them. But like
Yeah,
human faces are beautiful to humans. We're programmed to understand them really well. They're full of emotion. My youngest son is like obsessed with eyeballs right now. He's he just pokes off a lot of eyeballs. But it's interesting like that he's just like a tiny human, right? Like what are we
yeah.
super obsessed with? We're obsessed with like eyes, hands are super emotional. We gesticulate with them, we express ourselves. So just the act of like paying attention to those things and drawing them as accurately as I can and sort of like nice slow. I'm also in love with the way lines work on pages. Like the way ink flows out of a pen is I have always, that has always been my favorite thing. So that combination of things, I'm bringing a lot of love to what I'm doing in a very genuine way. Usually at some point while drawing someone, even if the drawing's not working out, or even if, it's a 2-minute drawing or something, because they do a lot of quick drawings. Usually at some point I'll realize that I love something about them. Like, oh, the way like your eye does this, has this shape and this curve is like really beautiful. Or, yeah, this person's got like this beautiful symmetry in their wonky nose, or like people are mostly beautiful and they're oddly more beautiful if they take off their clothes. And I don't mean like oh, they're more, yeah. I mean, even if someone is not attractive, if they're wearing a lot of clothes and they're covering themselves up, and I mean not attractive to me, like I'm like this person, whatever. When someone, when you're drawing a live model and they take off their clothes, mostly what you notice about people is that they're human, and there's like, they have beautiful moments. Curve here and a line here, or sort of so like mostly people look better with their clothes off. Generally speaking, people look more like humans with their clothes off, and it makes more sense. And it's never really bad. You think like nudity is occasionally silly, but usually pretty banal. And then there's these wonderful things you can notice about the way we're built, and the muscle and the fat work underneath our skin, the way everything works. I like humans.
It's human, definitely. It is very human. And again, like one thing, don't underestimate what you're doing. Like I'm looking at your art, and like the spirit, the energy behind it is just like so beautiful. And I guess that you are like, you explained that, right? Like, so you look at something and like the nose will be like kind of off or anything, but that is what is making the art work, right? Like in design, like I do a lot of poster design, and a lot of people sometimes like in design we're taught to make everything so symmetrical and so centered, but there are times when I will put some things off the center, off the, like I'll make it imperfect. And by making it imperfect, it actually becomes more perfect than before, because that's the way, the way the eye would work. Like, so if you make it perfect, it's like, the eye would look at it and it's like, there is nothing there. But you move it a little bit, like just by an inch or several pixels or whatever. It makes it more perfect, and I spend a lot of time actually doing that. Like I find that that's like most of my time, most of the time doing that, and you automatically incorporate that into your art. Like you're saying, I remember earlier you said like if you look at it from far, it's a mess. I don't think people will look at your art like that. Like I hope not. I hope not, but
Skip
you know, like
road
I don't
better?
think people look at it like that. I haven't looked at any one of your picture. I meant, ooh, that's a mess, right? So I find
Oftentimes,
that.
like the truth step back. But
Mhm.
there's what you were talking about there really reminded me of this thing that this is a super old conversation. I'm just going to
Yeah,
admit that I'm not, yeah. Um, when I was growing up, Cindy Crawford was like the model, right?
yeah,
She probably still is. I mean, she's like stunning in every way. And she has this mole, right?
yeah.
I feel like what you're talking about is like you're putting Cindy Crawford's mole into the design so
Hmm.
that you can see the perfection of the rest. Like, look, there's this one asymmetrical element. Now I can see the contrast and how everything is exactly as it should be. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's not ugly. You're not. I mean, I have a mole hair, so
Nice.
obviously maybe my dad told me this story. Maybe he was trying to make me feel better. Now that I think about
Yeah,
it, but I do think that like adding Cindy Crawford's mole in does make her, it does elevate her just that little bit more than just being stunning.
yeah,
Like again, she's a 12 or whatever. I mean, we can all see it, but like that, it's not an imperfection. It's the offset to the perfection that helps you see the perfection,
yeah,
or it's an imperfection that makes you see the perfection. It doesn't matter. But like that has to be, and when like nothing human is perfectly symmetrical. So when we see something that is perfectly symmetrical, it does feel very artificial. So when you
hmm,
cleverly add in an imperfection, you are adding yourself to it. You're
yeah, yeah.
making, yeah.
Well,
Um,
that's like going like I'm gonna go full nerd on you, but like Star Wars, the prequels, right? Like if you look at the original Star Wars, it was kind of dirty and dingy,
mm,
you know, and then all of a sudden in the prequels, it became this polished, clean looking universe. And
Gracias.
I find that like a lot of people say they hate the prequels, and I find that that's one of the reasons why it got rejected, because it's no longer, you know, you look at it and it's like, you know, it became this polished product, and you know, and people rejected. I find that people visually rejected that, and then in
Mhm.
comparison to the original ones, where you know the ship, the Millennium Falcon, for example, is a dirty ship. Like it's a used ship. Like you can tell
Mhm.
it flies in space, that it has been shot at, and you know that people walk in and out of it, and you know that it carries cargo. You know, so I find that is, you know, like going back to all of that, I find that to be very important. Like my next question, do you listen to music, and what kind of music do you listen to while creating your art?
Um, so I can listen to music if I'm doing a repetitive action.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it's possible for me to do it. So if I've like already planned, like, okay, I'm gonna draw, or if I'm just drawing, I don't want to say just drawing it up, but like if I'm drawing a picture that I'm looking in front of me, or like um, even a person who's in front of me, like my hand and my eye are pretty connected, and I can sometimes music helps me get in that zone.
Hmm.
Because like any aspect of planning, like it's hard because I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until I was like what 2 years ago. Um,
Hmm.
but like I've always had a learning disability. Like I've never been able to listen,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's always been like, I mean, a learning disability is when you can't live up to your potential. That's how I feel. Like you seem like you should be able to do X, but you can't do it. So for me, like I can't listen to an instruction and then follow it. I have to think through it on my own.
Hmm.
Um, and there's just an extra step. Um, especially with anything planning related, like it's so hard. So yeah,
Hmm.
I can impulsively create while listening to music, and I can also like be inspired. I'm not that inspired by music. I love music, but I don't have a relationship between my art and music. It's too much.
Yeah, yeah.
I have information overload. Also,
Uh,
um, hyperfocus is like a very weird state to be in.
yeah, yeah.
Um, because I can, as long as there's not literally a tiny person tugging on my arm, which is rare these days, I can zone things out if I'm
Hmm.
drawing. but then the world disappears into what I'm doing. Like hyper focus is a state.
Yeah, yeah.
You're
The
more
flow state.
focused than someone who's focusing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, so I it's either on or off for me.
Definitely.
And like, yeah. So, you know, when I'm not drawing or if I'm doing sort of something by rote, I can listen to music. Yeah. And then
Mhm.
I'm also like very not sophisticated in my musical taste. I like angry music makes me happy, and happy music makes me angry. But that's just like a wiring issue. Like
Mhm.
yeah, now that I'm older, I can like listen to the Beatles and appreciate that the Beatles are better than angry like covers of the Beatles by like metal and
Yeah,
industrial
yeah.
bands. I can clearly see that like when John Lennon sings this, it's much better than when like this guy sings it. But just as a matter of preference, I'd still rather listen to a lesser but angrier version.
Yeah.
Um, and then it just I find that stuff like wires me up, makes me feel good. Um, so like I don't, yeah, I do think that there's a crossed wire for music with me as well.
Mhm.
Um, my brothers are both really musical. And I listened to a lot of electric guitar when I was growing up. So, unless it's like literally, unless it's Tom Petty,
Yeah.
I don't like it unless it's pretty metal. Tom Petty is the exception on this for many reasons. But
Nice.
I don't, maybe I get too distracted. Like maybe if it's a song that I really love, I just kind of want to move to the song.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like, I, that's not how I art. Sometimes I art like moved by emotion. Like someone's really angry and I like throw some angry, like, and get the paint out. But yeah, it's not something that I wouldn't say like it's influential in my process at all.
Okay,
Um,
okay. That's
which
fine.
I wonder if it shows up in like maybe musical people look at my work and they're like, this is missing some notes. It might be interesting to like actively pursue like a small series which has like musical inspiration, because I know a
Yeah.
lot of people have
Mhm.
a wonderful deep connections to music, and um it comes into their flow and it shows up in their work.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I get it. I don't listen to music when I'm making my art.
Okay. I don't feel
At
so
all.
bad.
I get it. No,
Do you find
you
it
know.
distracting?
Hmm?
Do you find it distracting?
Yeah. No. Well, my
Okay.
my thing is with all this, right? There is always a better music playing inside of my head than anyone can ever make. Like there's no one, like not even the Beatles, no Michael Jackson, nobody can ever make better music than what I have in my head. And like I mentioned it earlier, the flow state. The flow state, you get into the flow state and you're connected with a higher power. And you are at that point listening to that higher power. I actually believe, like I have a thing where I don't trust people who cannot exist in silence without music. I find like so sometimes I'll have like I'll be like even at work, like some people like, oh, I need to put the music on. I need to put, what is it about you that you cannot connect with your higher self and be in communication with your higher self? What is it about you that you need to hear music? Like, why don't you trust your own mind? That is the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear that from a person like that needs to play music all the time. So for me, like I spend a lot of time, like yeah, when you're like you spend a lot of time in the flow state. You spend, and you get at peace with yourself and you connect with a higher power and you start to hear your own music. And if you look at all religion, all meditation, everything that is going on, like that is spiritual level, it's always about connecting with like they always go into the hum home, like
Mm.
monks do that home. That's the inner music being created. That's the universe itself speaking to you. So to me, like I don't listen to music neither. The only time I'll put on music is when I have to showcase the artwork.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like I need to have the video playing. So it's like then I'll put on music that kind of I feel like would kind of reflect what I'm doing. But otherwise than that, like I don't do music either. So I completely get where you're coming from and what you're trying to explain.
That's good. I'm just gonna turn on the car because I'm very cold. If I look like I'm passing out, remind me to turn off the car.
No, yeah. What was going on?
Oh, I'm just turning on the. I'm actually turning on the car so I can charge up my phone so it doesn't.
Okay.
Die. But if I look drowsy, we'll turn the car off.
Yeah. Please don't pass out on me.
Yeah. Okay. I feel better because actually I know quite a few artists who talk. It's not. I've never had a conversation where someone said I have to be listening to music in order to create art. But people do talk about it, and I find it really distracting. Oh, speaking of. So yeah, no, there is a flow state. It does matter. It does matter like what works for you. And I think that people are, I don't know. Okay. So you talk about a higher power. I think of it in terms of like, there are things I feel guilty about in my life, like primarily, these days if I feel like I'm not doing the right thing for my kids, or, I mean, I have so many career related like I'm pursuing being an artist. That's a thing to feel guilty about if you have a family to support and a partner to partner with, right? Like I'm not contributing as a partner, that's for sure. But my conscience isn't angry with me. When I am sitting quietly and I think about the decisions I make, if I come across them, I'm pretty connected to my own mental health, and I'm also pretty connected to like I'm not an activist. I don't seek that label, and I don't think it necessarily applies to me, but I am like beholden to my conscious thought and my conscience. So if something comes if I do a little bit of research into something, if someone mentions like, oh, hey, Starbucks made a deal with Nestle, you don't support Nestle because there's like child slavery in their supply line, I'm going to stop drinking Starbucks. Like that's, and I'm going to annoyingly ask that strangers on the internet do the same. Like that's just, I mean, I'm a bit of an egg. So like when I'm sitting there, I'm not in the silence, maybe being productive or not being productive. I'm not like afraid of my conscience saying like, hey, what are you doing? Like, what's up? I'm not, and it like it's I'm aware of my own inner demons and I'm working on them, but I'm not. I don't feel like I'm losing the battle. And so that's just me like bragging about myself, I guess. But I don't do as much as I should. And there's lots of I've been mean to people. I've done all kinds of rotten things, but currently the way I feel about that sort of like scorecard in my head is that I'm doing okay. And I want to listen to my conscience as well. Like if it turns out that I'm not being fair to someone and I haven't taken proper consideration into the way that I'm treating someone, I want to know about that. I want my brain to tell me about that and I want to fix it. I mean, it's going to be a struggle and maybe I won't make the right call in the end. I don't know, but that comes into it as well. Like I think a lot of people haven't maybe done the research that they feel that they should do in order to lead the life that they would actually be really proud of. And they're really busy. Like they're tired, and they have other things to do, and they are looking after their families and doing all kinds of good things, but there's things that they feel like they aren't doing right, and they're afraid to confront those things. So I do think that like being willing to spend time with yourself in silence has something to do with your relationship to your own conscience. Like my conscience could be terrible. Like maybe I'm doing a dozen things that you would never do, but I'm like not self-aware enough to know about those things. So I'm not afraid of them. And And I actually do want to deal with them if they're there, which again, they almost certainly are. So
No.
for me, like, I just feel like I should be listening to those inner voices, not getting carried away with them, but like actively trying to be a good person.
Yeah, yeah.
And
No, no, I
that's
get
my
it.
virtual signaling for today.
No, yeah, like what you're explaining. I study the subconscious a lot, and yesterday you actually had an artist on whose art is based on subconscious. But I have like my saying, like my understanding of this is that you can speak like you can speak war in war, you can speak peace in war, and like so some people, like you'll notice that their conscience isn't really aligned with them, because whenever you throw something at them, they have this thing where they have to argue back, and they speak in arguments, and you can immediately tell that their subconscious themselves and their subconscious aren't really aligned, right? Like, so you say something regardless of whether you're right or wrong, they have to say an opposite. They don't try and explore it, right? So there is people who speak the people who speak in peace now, they are more about understanding. It's like, okay, you've given them something, and whether whatever you've given them is right or wrong, it doesn't matter. They're gonna ask you who, they're gonna ask you why, they're gonna ask you when, and they're gonna have a conversation with you, right? So, and it all comes back down to being at peace with yourself. If you're at peace with yourself, then the conversations that you have are more, they're peaceful. Like you express a more peaceful presentation of yourself, as opposed to being a argumentative person who just has this need to to counter whatever a person is saying, or to appear bigger, than what a person is saying, or to make the bigger joke or whatever. So yeah, man, like what you're presenting, you're at peace with yourself. You understand yourself,
See,
and therefore you
now that you mention it,
mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit of both.
Yeah, yeah.
But I will say, in defense of all of us who are contrarians, because I have that in me.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's for like a greater good. Sometimes it's like, you can be a peacemaker, but if everyone's doing the wrong thing and you feel like there's a wrong that needs to be righted, sometimes you have to be the voice of discontent. But
Definitely.
but more specifically, like what you're talking about, that very like that sort of like internet trolling, that like I have that in me, and it almost always comes out of insecurity. Like it's almost always like a bitterness or an insecurity. Like I'm super insecure all the time, and jealous, and all like I'm a human, and I'm
You're
super
human,
flawed.
yeah.
But okay, so, and this is the other weird thing that I'm noticing, because the internet, because I watched the internet, start existing, and the way it is now and the way we've grown is like, you notice like comments are getting more reasonable.
Yeah.
Like in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I think we're exchanging ideas, and the ideas that are winning in those like comment sections, like people talk about Reddit a lot. I like Reddit. People talk about Reddit a lot as like, there's horrible subreddits where there's echo chambers or whatever, and that's true. But like generally speaking, when all sides are presented, maybe I'm not going to change my mind in the middle of an argument, because I've never met anyone who. I mean, sometimes I'll try and concede the point just to be that much of a contrarian that I'm conceding in the face of no one conceding. But I do notice that like maybe I try an argument with you and I say, no, Canada's the best country in the world, nationalism's awesome, and then you're like, hey man, like there's other great countries and global population, whatever, and I just argue with you back and forth. But the next time I enter into an argument, I have so many opportunities to have that same discussion again and again. Over time my mind will be changed. So like I do feel like that maturity and that like urge to peacemake is growing within us. And I mean, when I say within us, I guess I mean within like people who have the option to have really perfect free speech. And
Yeah.
when I mean really perfect, I do sort of mean like the Canadian version of perfect, which is like, okay, but don't be like too ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like it's not okay to use hate speech.
Hmm.
Um, I, for me, like I think the law shouldn't forbid hate speech. I'm a little bit like I'll have lots of arguments with people about that, because I think I should get to know if like that other person is hateful, and I want those horrible, stupid ideas tried in the arena of public opinion, because I think
Yeah.
they'll
Yeah. Yeah.
die. Because the way to kill them is to watch idiots express them and then see those people eloquently shot down by their betters. Like
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I am very sympathetic to people who punch Nazis. Like I get it. I get why we'd want to punch Nazis. We should definitely not have Nazis. So,
Definitely.
but like that arena of combative public speech, I feel like that the ability to do that, and people coming along peacemaking by connecting
Yeah.
with the moron making and kind of trying to get that guy to calm down a little bit and find somewhere where he's a bit more of a human being, and just educate. Those people are so vital, and you don't get to have those people without the free arena of and free speech. So
Definitely.
I feel like in Canada, where we have lots of rights and lots of protections, just
Yeah.
by being super remote. Right now, we have those protections right now. I don't know how long we're going to have them, but I feel like we're
Yeah.
becoming sophisticated, actually, and the internet's really helpful for that. Just like
Definitely.
there's a like I sort of, and from sort of like from an artistic point of view, I want people to like my art. I wish that I could present it always at a local fair and you could never see anyone else's artwork outside of I want my pool to be small because,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so big a fish, right? So
Mhm.
I want a chance to succeed. But, I have access to videos that teach me how to do things. I have access to
Yeah.
this like incredibly enriching environment, and I can up my game. I can be a better artist with the influence of other artists. So like there's a there's a part of you that just kind of wants to go with it, and then a part of you that wants to fight it and find your own space and find your own like combativeness and art. There's a relationship there.
There is. Yeah. No, there
So
is. There is a relationship. Like it's a conversation. Like uh, and obviously, like you can be contrarian. Like what it comes down to, like it's you're aware of what you're doing, and you're doing it for a reason. You're doing it to get to a point. And going back to what you're saying, like I frequent. I tell people like, well, I frequent YouTube a lot. And I take a lot of time being in the comment section. I'm
oh
in the
wow,
comment section.
that's a zone.
Huh? I
That's
didn't
a
hear you.
zone. That's a zone. That's a YouTube comment section is interesting.
Yeah, it is. It can be. Like, you know what it is? What I like about it though is that, like, so for example, there is a political video where the mainstream media will spin it one way. But
Mm-hmm.
when you go into the YouTube comment section and you read everybody's opinion, you start to see like you've now seen every single angle of the argument. It's almost like an art piece, like like the way you had described the class before, where people have their own interpretation of that art piece. And when you said I forgot what the exact example was, but that was so um like it was so different from
Oh yeah, like
what people think.
the cross and her seeing the plastic as like it being like sanitary.
Protection.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah.
original. But it's out there. There's symbols that are being used. Something is being said. There's an incident. We all share the world. We all
Yeah,
share the symbols. You're
yeah, yeah.
right. So, like the YouTube comment section is like everybody building a sculpture from every angle. It doesn't
Exactly.
like it doesn't always work as a cohesive whole artistically, but you do. I mean, historians are going to have a field day. Like it's
Oh,
there's
wow, yeah.
linguists. Oh, linguists love this age. It's just must be so much fun for them. It's like
Yeah,
thank you
yeah.
Twitter. Yeah.
No, I love that. Like, and that's how you become more knowledgeable on a subject, like really fast. It used to be that it takes 10 years for like something like that to be dissected, but now it's done in an instant.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, so for me, you know, when I need to know about something, like I'm always in the comment section of a YouTube video. You know, like I'm reading up on it. I'm talking about it with other people. Sometimes I'll comment myself, and there are threads that I've been in for years. Like for
Mm-hmm.
years, we're
Oh,
just going
wow.
back and forth, just speaking about subjects. And sometimes there are threads where we'll come back, like someone will leave like someone will leave like a comment, oh, this video didn't age well. Right, and then boom, the thread just goes right back to everybody that was there like the years ago, coming back with their new opinions and their new interpretation. And you know, and then goes back, like you said, the free speech. To me, I'm an advocate for free speech. I get in a lot of trouble for that as well, especially within the Black community, where it can be like the word racist can be thrown out there so fast.
Mm.
And you know, and now, like beyond that, we have racist, but we also have now bigot. We have sexist. We have, oh, you're a Trump supporter, or oh, you're right, or oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Like, so all these words are now dampening what can be free speech, and
Mm-hmm.
by extent, progression. Right? Like, because sometimes we do need to be wrong and go
Yes.
explore that wrongness in order to get to the actual right point. And I think that is what's happening with even in the YouTube comments. Like, people are trying to find I guess the right narrative to the particular subject. And yeah, so it's beautiful. Like, it started off like comment section used to be like, I guess they used to be terrible, but now they're very valuable. Like, I spend a lot of time, like my morning times, like I spend most of my time just reading comment sections of things that I'm interested in, and things of that level. So I completely understand where you're coming from in that sense. Yeah.
There's a book. It's so weird. It sort of like predicts the comment section. It's one of the most brilliant predictions. It's a novella. It's by E.M. Forster, who is my favorite person ever.
Yeah.
I mean, who I didn't give birth to.
Yeah.
And it's called The Machine Stops, and it was written in 1909. So the telephone had just come out, and Forster envisions, it's been a while since I've read it, but Forster envisions a future in which everyone stays in their own room.
Ah,
And
no way.
yeah, no, I don't know if they actually stare at screens, but everything is done. The machine is just everywhere. And so imagine being in your own sort of space, and food is provided. And the main character's mother, maybe she's the main character, her whole life is just this one tiny room. And she's actually quite well respected in her community of people she never talks to, because she's a great commenter. She comments on the comment, like, great pieces of art have been reflected on, and she's commenting on somebody else's piece of it. And this is just like regular life. It's called The Machine Stops. So you can imagine. But there's scenes in it where people actually have to connect to each other. They have to get from location A to location B for whatever reason. And it freaks them out. Like, being on the equivalent of a very unpopulated bus, everybody's like just unable to look at each other or talk to each other, and they're phobic of each other. You know? So, like, I mean, when you have like a super genius like E.M. Forster, who understands human beings incredibly well, who understands what it is to be, he's like gay in 1909 when he's writing this. So imagine being a member of a minority, but being able to pass, because I don't know how much they knew about being gay, but certainly not everyone would have been able to guess that about him. And having had, I think, quite a sympathetic relationship with his mother, who was very supportive. And having written a book about, Maurice is a book about being gay, written by a man who lived back then. Like, it's so, anyway, he's amazing. He
That's deep.
really
Yeah.
understands human beings. Yeah, and he understands human beings so well that he takes the technology like, oh, people can now talk to each other on a telephone, so they don't have to visit each other. Oh, let me just project that into the future. People are going to be sitting in rooms, commenting in comments. Like I don't know. He's so underrated,
Yeah.
and that story is so underrated. It's so good.
Yeah.
But so there's like, because I've was thinking about that recently, because I've read that and was thinking about what it is to be an artist. So I think about that sometimes. I sometimes wonder, like, maybe I'll make something, and so I put like everything online in like fairly, like, if you want to buy it, you can buy it, but you don't need to. You can just print out a copy from what I put on my website if you wanted to. Um, I think there's like an element of like, oh, well, this is going to be around for a while. Maybe something that I make just gets to stick around, and maybe nobody gets it for like 200 years, and that's okay. And then somebody finds it and they're like, oh, people used to draw each other in person. That's so amazing. Let me just go outside and see what's going. Like, you never know, like, when your stuff is going to connect to someone and when it's going to become important to somebody at some point. But also, we're producing so much stuff. I wonder if it's all these conversations we're having, these communities we're forming, they're important to us.
Yeah.
But there is just a danger of there being so many people and these conversations not necessarily involving enough people that we don't have the ability to mobilize against the machine. And that's fine when the machine is doing well for you. So like when Bayer, Monsanto, Bayer, whatever, is providing food and everyone's well fed, that's a good thing, right? Like we want the largest percentage of the population to be fed. Of course we do.
Yeah.
But it's not okay, like, that we're doing what we're doing to the environment, but we can't really see it. So we can like comment on it and be like, I don't like this post about clear cutting forests or whatever. But like, because we are disconnected from the physicality of our communities and our world.
Yeah.
And then because a comment is an empowering thing. Like I've definitely written some comments, got a bunch of likes, and been like, yes, I did something today. There's a danger, right? Like where activism is just, and like free speech exists online, but like, are people really able to affect change? Are they able to, are we able to like actively support a democracy? Like, do we get to stay a democracy when other people can organize and put forth a version of reality that we all think that we know what's going on? Like when information can be distorted, are you still living in a democracy when there's only, when none of the people you're voting for are people you know or really understand what their motives are, and there isn't that accountability because you don't show up to the city hall meeting because nobody does that, and it's like, oh, I'll put a campaign in for this, and I don't like. I think there's a danger to the empowerment and community we feel outside of the real world, outside of affecting real change. And there's also like, we pick these really superficial battles sometimes. Like I have really strong opinions about like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, like super strong opinions about them. Like
that is
it's weird. Like, first of all, I don't know those people. I don't have a clear picture of what happened. And second of all, that's not remotely important to the world I live in. Like the Amazon rainforest, super important. Do I know? What do I know more about? I definitely know more about like how Amber Heard said that she was abused, but maybe really Johnny Depp was the one who was like my priorities in terms of like, oh, I'm entertained by this piece of information. It's gossip. It keys me. It like lights up these parts of my brain. I get a real kick out of being right here. Like I have all these opinions that are like, it didn't take any research. They are probably totally wrong, and they're not relevant to anyone anyway. Like I'm not voting. I'm not in the court voting on that. Like, so yeah, I like online communities. I like to feel connected. I like having. I do see the sophistication in the comments that people are making. But I think that we're losing like. And I like memes. Memes are good. They're smart. If you can think of them, I like some memes. Those are great. But it's almost never true. The meme that you're looking at that's funny is almost never true. It's superficially true, but it just doesn't cover enough information. There's a reason that an expert writes a book, not and the book elaborately details a process. There's
Yeah,
a
definitely.
reason that a painter makes something. There's a lot of thought behind it. Yes, you're only looking at this one piece, but you can step up close to it. You can, when it's physically in front of you, even just go to a concert or go to a comedy show, like
Yeah.
being there, it adds depth because there's depth in the world around us. So, um, like even okay, so for this interview, I'm in a car. The car is really real to me. Like the texture of the plastic, the fake leather texture on the plastic dashboard is really real. Like, you're real too, but like, which one is more in my world? And someone looking at this,
Yeah.
like, or there's some people who came by and they got in a car and then they left. Those people could really give me coronavirus. This is real there too, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're probably, what is she doing? Why is she talking to herself in a car? Like, I don't think I've made this point well, but something's missing from not being with things, and like
Yeah.
it makes less of a difference in an interview, which is so based on our ability to talk to each other in real time. The video does a huge amount of the work. We're missing something, but not everything. But like when you're looking at an art piece, like so that like crucifix piece that I was talking about earlier, we had a show at the Gladstone, and I was looking to put it up on the wall, and my brother, who's great at composition, he put it up in the corner, leaning down, so it has a loom to it. So when you walk under it, it's like, first of all, it's presented in the way that crucifixes are presented, so it's more the thing it is. It has more meaning. Plus, it's in a room. It's next to a window. It has the shadow is not just a shape. It's like you have a more understanding of the depth of field. And it, like, standing looking up at it is a very different experience than looking at the picture on the website of me standing click.
Yeah,
It
that's so
loses
true.
a lot. Like, somebody took a picture of it with a close-up, so you can see the texture of the garbage bag, which is great. I'll post that and credit it. But like, I don't know that it even looks like it's wrapped in garbage bags from the photographs. Like, it's not, and the size of a garbage bag matters, right? Like, it gives it and the shininess and the way that the light moves, it gives it a sense of the thing that you're, and the smell. Like, there's another piece in that exhibit which I made when I was there. I put it up in 2 days. It's not brilliant or anything, but I used a lot of plastic bags, and that piece like produced a real smell. It smelled like plastic, and it was like, the piece is called like Love Affair with Plastic, I think. But like, your relationship, when you smell a lot of plastic like that, it's not a great smell. It doesn't smell like plants or like something beautiful, but it doesn't smell bad. Like, that is a market researched smell for sure for the plastic bags that they have. Like, the way it feels familiar, feels like home. Like, a lot of that piece is missing if you're not like in it. Like, if you're standing looking, like, from inside the piece looking around, it's a much better piece. You can smell it and you can feel it and you can even touch it if you're the artist. It's a very different piece than a photograph of the piece that's posted online and is, this big. Like, and that's not even a good piece. That's like one of my more, it's an installation, so obviously it's going to be more 3D, but like, I think about the work of people that I know, and if it's a large painting with a lot of detail in it, and it's has an impressionistic style, but the person has made that their own, and I'm thinking of a particular artist for this one. It's nice to see it online. You can see how good she is if you're online looking at it, but like, I've never seen her work in person. It's probably 10 times better.
I would imagine,
like, to be staring at this piece and it to be looking like you're looking at a window, but it's impressionistic, and it's like, to see the texture of the paint in 3 dimensions, because paintings are sculptures.
Yeah,
You're
they
really
are
looking
noticing
at it on a sculpture. So like, some of my work translates nicely to the screen, because it's like a marker picture is kind of the same on a screen, or just if you're looking at it. You can alter it digitally, and then there's like work that is created on digital devices. which is like, we'll see how that goes. So far, I know 2 artists, I think,
Yeah.
whose digital work has a sense of being real.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not the most realistic stuff. It's just like it has certain textures and imperfections that, like, the person has a good enough eye and they're sort of brilliant enough to make it feel like a real place or a real person.
Okay. Okay.
Really tricky. That Star Wars prequel effect, I'm seeing a lot
Yeah.
of that in digital art. Some of it intentional, and some of it's like overwhelming the piece.
Yeah.
Like if it
Yeah.
was just a drawing, or if it was just a painting with the same level of skill and talent, it would be a better piece,
Mm-hmm.
because it would be a real thing, and even
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
picture of it would be more convincing than the digital. So it's like a, you know, but then I'm not that familiar with digital work. I know there are other really brilliant digital artists out there, but I happen to have seen a lot that I was like, I don't get it. And then 2 people who I think, okay, you understand what like reality is, and you're
Yeah.
bringing reality into this.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
and whether it's got a surrealist or whether it's improved reality or whether it's a sketch, doesn't matter. Like, it's you, that person is just that level of talent and skill. I bet you in 15 years, digital artwork by like the up and coming generation who's never touched a paint.
No. Yeah, we don't want to do that though. Like, I think we art is art. Like physical art. Like, I struggle with that too, because a lot of people are telling me if you go digital, like, things will be like your art will be so much better. Like, 'cause I do anime art,
Mm.
and sometimes I get it, I see it, because I'll be working on the same picture for like days, whereas in the digital world I could just press undo,
Mm-hmm.
control Z, and then
Yep.
undo. But no, we don't wanna, like, I don't know. I find, like, now that I'm seeing more artwork from galleries, and I didn't have that in my mind before, but paintings are sculptures of their own. So, but to see that texture, to be able to see the texture,
Mm-hmm.
just adds a different layer of interpreting that artwork. So that is, I find that is very important. That is very important to art. Digital art in itself is great too. But
Mm-hmm.
like being there, like, that art is like the way layered art is important. Being able to be there in person is important. Like, I'm pretty sure this interview would be like a lot more better and more dynamic if we were in person. And that's just like basically the higher power of 2 people, 2 spirits being um, in the same room, creating that hive mind situation. So I find that is very important, and that being in person for things has to be, should be considered, and should not be undervalued at all. But it is, yeah, you're right. It is slowly dying out. Like, sooner or later, we're just gonna be in our homes. We're gonna be stuck here, and like, I can order McDonald's, right? And McDonald's will be here within 10 minutes. We live in that world now, so it's kind of scary. So I'm blessed. Like, I think we're blessed that we have been able to see the world before the internet.
Yeah.
Uh, and
Well,
we
let's
got this.
pretend that our age is a blessing. But
Yeah,
then okay, so like for me, a lot of my process is struggle and failure. Like
yeah, yeah.
and when I work digitally, I might have a failure if I'm working for someone else and they say, that's not what I want. I want it more like this. And I got to take 10 steps back or restart a project or anything. That's possible. But
Mm,
so often I just edge piece by piece towards success without really encountering an I hate it moment and
yeah,
having to.
yeah,
And I do find that my best work comes out of an experience that I'm having while I'm making it. That's just, maybe it's my opinion, but like
mm,
struggling to overcome something physical, even like physically wrestling with a piece
yeah,
sometimes, um, can where you're like, oh, I have to make this thing go upside down in order to paint this part of it, and like, how am I going to get this detail? And like, you're working on the mechanics of the thing, or like, you know, not to just like harp on that cross, but like I've never made a cross before, so I had to like learn how to tie a knot in order to like make the two two pieces stick together.
Yeah, yeah.
And like the physicality of learning how to do that, and then the experience that it opens up when you put in a new skill, and then you understand the world you're in more, and you understand what the knot is supposed to, like if I were to go to draw a knot, it would be, you know, on an iPad, it would be better for me to make the knot first, so I understood what the pieces were. If I'm just copying pieces, I'm not really going to get a good understanding of what's too big and too small, and this would fit together here, and then like my piece doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I don't think that artists have to struggle in order to be successful or good. Some people are just so good that nothing is ever a struggle for them. And that doesn't make them lesser. Like, but for some of us, struggling through a piece allows us to develop it as itself, and to have it, and to be saying something new. And I worry as well, like, if there's no imperfections, there is no evolution. That's like,
Yeah.
that's literally how evolution, like, you know,
That's
if
how
I'm
it
just working
works.
on perfect copies of the thing forever,
Yeah.
I think you see this with pop music to some degree. Like, oh, then we know, okay, we want like a falsetto here, and we want to put the falsetto in contrast with this grittiness over here, and that's going to make you pay attention. And this, like, wow, I've really heard this fucking song before. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
whereas like there's a way to do a, if you want a culture and you want artistic voices, like individual voices to matter and new things to happen, perfection is a problem.
Yeah.
It's not a problem for the one song. The one song will be better if it's really beautifully produced, and a lot of time and effort goes into researching how to make it sound right. And the one image will look better if it is, you know, the face is symmetrical, but she's got freckles, and the eyes are a little bit bigger than normal, but she's, you know, she's got like a cool scar here, but it's not in the place that's going to make distort the face in a way it's ugly. Like, yeah, you'll make pretty things.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, I don't, pretty things are not a reflection of me, and they're not like, they're not a reflection of the people I know and love. I don't need to be surrounded by supermodels ever. One time I got in an elevator full of models. It wasn't a good elevator ride. I don't want my world to be that elevator ride. First of all, they were intimidatingly tall. Second of all, I
Yeah.
walked out like knowing my place in the world and be like, oh man, like I wanted to be pretty. Like, you shouldn't have to achieve like perfection to matter. And I don't want that to be the standard. Like, when you look at Instagram and you look at like top stories, like there's some really original stuff coming out of that. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
let's not pretend like the best stuff isn't like on the top. But there is you do see a stream of things which are like a very, very beautiful teenage girl with a cool punk aesthetic, who, you know, she's like slightly cyberpunk, and her ethnicity is like, all my features are white but my skin color is a little bit different, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
supposed to stand in for culture. And you're like that's alternative, and you're like, listen man, that's incredibly well done, and I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But I just don't want the world to be only that. I want that needs to be in the world. Just because I'm jealous of the models doesn't mean that we should like shoot the models. Like, obviously we want beautiful people as well,
Don't
right?
shoot the models,
Yeah,
feed them.
yeah, well, but like, you don't want like a Harrison Bergeron, is that how you pronounce that? I can't remember. You don't want a world where people like have to be equal, and like we're gonna stunt people who aren't as good,
Yeah, yeah.
who are better than us, in order to make ourselves feel good. It's not about that. It's just about in order to have a living culture, there has to be more voices than just the perfect voice.
Yeah, yeah.
So
No, I get it. There's a lot in there. There's a lot in there. Let me see. Let me ask this question because we're getting into the next interview. So I will ask this. Let me see. What is? Mm, if you had to pitch a collaborative project to the community, to the arts community, what would that project be?
Ooh. See, I didn't look at any questions beforehand. I don't know if you sent me questions. I didn't look at them.
No worries.
I've been working on designs. It would be really fun to make a publication of like right now. I think people need to reflect on what's going on in the world, what it feels like to be isolated, how much we miss each other, because like a lot of the creative process is about being alone but like we all miss people and sunshine.
Yeah.
And then so that it would be nice to hear different artists' take on that, just in maybe like one piece. That's why like a magazine would be interesting, like an online publication would be interesting for that. I'm sure a million people are doing it, but I think it is the thing to do right now. It's just to take voice. They're like, hey, what is your reflection on this? What is the piece that you like the best of your work that reflects this? Like, let's give it some, let's give it some space to think about and to see different. It's a theme you could build on. But that's more independent artists working and then like an organizer putting that together. In terms of collaborations, I've been interested in working with my brother more because he's so good at compositions. Oh my god! And I have skill sets. I'm good with details. So when I think about collaborations for me, I'm very focused on like trying to make him do something with me. But it would be interesting to pair people up, see what came out of the pairings, and then I find that artists work really, really well if there's a lot of guidelines, because I generally find that creativity works against challenges. So to give people guidelines and components like, hey, we want you two to come up with, we're making the word Canada. We want you two to come up with the N. Like, give us, you know what I mean? Like something that's so specific that you take two people and you say, it has to be both of you. It has to come from both of you. You each have to have control over this aspect of it, and see if you're working together or competing. Like, so any project that I would want to be involved in would be fairly, like I'd want a specific chunk that was my responsibility to do that I could showcase. And I want the organization and having it work together come from, or, if I was in charge, this is how I would do it too. Like, this is your color scheme. Like, listen, we're trying to make the word Canada. It's going to be purple. So these are the colors you can work with. These are the, your material choices are up to you. But like, so regardless of the, it almost doesn't matter what the walls of the box that you put people in are made of. You just have to make sure you put them in the box. And then in terms of like, if a group project, like maybe you have 5 or 6 people working together or 100 people working together, then I don't know. It's really hard to do with artists because people have their own visions, and like that's why so much is like, hey, I have an idea, you guys write proposals, and some of you will be accepted, and those people, like oftentimes with a group show or like a festival, even like a crafty thing, it's like, let's make sure we don't have 2 people doing the same thing because then they're competing with each other. So like, in terms of collaborating with people, do you pair people together who are similar, or do you pair people together who are totally different? Like, do you put a digital artist with a physical artist and say like, hey, work off each other, like that, I don't know.
Well, they can probably figure it out though. Like, and I guess this is a good time to pitch what Creative UTO is. Creative Unicorns of Toronto. And it goes back, like, it's your answer, like, it fits perfect with what you've been explaining. like having worked on projects over the years, I found that you know, a lot of the problems that you brought up come up, right? Like they come up. Like we're all artists in our own way. Like even people who don't create art, like an accountant is an artist of its own. Like he just works with numbers, you know. And so with that said, I've worked projects. I've worked with startups before, and I always found that the work process is what ends up killing the momentum of creation.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, one analogy that I have around this is the Tower of Babel fell because there wasn't a unified language.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I guess that's where creative UTO comes in. It's that it is. I'm trying to build a incubator and a collaborative system that would answer all these questions. You know, and that would answer all of these questions for artists. So it's like all of us come together and we know how the system. We have a system of how we create stuff. Like, so if it's 100 of us, or if it's 50 of us, maybe one of us, we have a collaborative process of creating things. And I call that collaborative process SMARTER, and it's called it's an acronym for Simplified Methods Achieving Results Through Exact Rhythm. And by having this collaborative system, it allows us to collaborate together, but it also allows us to stay in, to be individuals and work on our own times and work on our own flows and things like that. And that's what creative UTO is, and that is, you know, what the incubator is, and that is what I'm trying to bring into the arts community, or that's what bring into the arts community, or more so find the people who would fit into these would fit into the system. So you know, like so yeah, that's basically what your answer. I've been through that. I sat down for a while. I had to think about it, like that, just even for myself, where like, because you're working with someone and you're like in such a good relationship and you're both in the flow, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're no longer on the same page, and there is no system in place to get you back on that same page. So we need a system like that to help us all get on the same page, share resources. So someone like yourself, you know, working from home, you know, you might get distractions, but you know, Creative UTO, now working out of Gallery 1017, it allows you to come to the gallery and actually create work out of the gallery. And you have less distraction. You have a whole bunch of people who understand how the system works. And you have people who understand you as an artist, and they understand art, and they also understand that we need to find a way to monetize our time so that we can have more freedom to create our own art. So you know, going back to that, like what it comes down to is like we just need to find a system, and that system, the system that I've designed is based on project management principles. It's based on agile. And you know, and that is I guess that's my pitch. It's like it's bringing that's what I want to bring to artists like yourself, like like, just to simplify it into one word, you know, it's freedom. It's giving you the freedom to work and get something done, and actually find a way to monetize it and live off of it, so that you can actually keep focus. You can stay an artist, basically, right? That's my pitch, and that's going back to what you said. This is something that I've been thinking, that I think about a lot. And it goes back to, like, yeah, we're working with human beings. I'm working with human beings, and I love these people. and it's non-sexual. Right? So I love these people. Like, I have a tremendous amount of love and affection for these people that I've been working with. Like, I remember most people that I've worked with. I remember most fallouts that I had, and in the arts community, we need to have that system that will keep us together. We need to find a way to support each other and being able to collaborate together and get things done.
Yeah, I do think because there's just not a lot of money in the arts, I do think that it's very competitive, and that's not working out for anyone.
No.
Like the level of competition is driving price down. I don't know anyone who works in the arts who is genuinely asking to be paid a lot of money for what they do. Everyone just wants like a living wage. Like, listen, if I work 12 hours, like, I don't think I should be making like less than minimum wage for that. Like, so there's that aspect. There's also, because it's competitive, people don't necessarily like, oh, hey, I had this success, let me pass that on to you and pull you up after me, which is
no way. Yeah,
it works in business, right? So yeah, I like your pitch. I'm not hearing, like, I'm fairly honest, so I'll tell you, I'm not hearing like a lot of specifics. Like, I don't understand the system that you're describing, and I hope that there's like a process of like an after action review where there's an ability to step back and say like what worked, what didn't work. We need someone with like a spreadsheet to be like, hey, we all thought this was going to be a great idea, we were really excited, and then we lost money on it. How do we like, if the idea, so what collaborations are allowing artists to make, break even? Like, the first thing people need to do is break even, right? Like, it has to be, okay, well, now that I'm breaking even, now I need to like be making something. Like, it's there also is just like, I don't know. Everybody's process is different, and some people, like, it's like we were talking about, like, some people need to listen to music. Like, if someone needs to listen to music, and then like you and I walk into a room and there's music playing, we'll be like, whoa, like, it's a really difficult way to have a flow for me. And then there's just like, I don't know. It's tricky for me because I am so easily distracted by other people. Like, but have you done like a series of like, okay, we're going to try this, we're going to try it for this limited period of time, we're going to record what worked, what didn't work, we're going to review heavily, and then we're going to try it again, but with these changes? Like, are you going through an evolution of what you're doing?
No, what's happening, so there is a whole system in place, and the presentation behind this system takes about an hour. But to keep it short, it's simplified methods achieving results through exact rhythm. It has four pillars of creation. It starts with the gathering phase. Well, so the gathering phase is like, we're just gathering ideas, and when we do that usually through a business model canvas, and we use the design thinking process. So what ended up happening is, when someone had taught me I learned both of them at around the same time. But I ended up getting a business model canvas. So I'll just quickly pull it up here. And so that's all in the gathering phase. And what a business model canvas does is it forces you to articulate your idea. So I'm hoping I can pull it up. It forces you to articulate your idea. Right, like, so it asks for things like, who are the key partners? What is the value proposition? What are the channels that you're going to present your idea? What is it that you do to maintain a relationship with your customers? Right, and that's all in the gathering phase. But yeah, I learned both of them at the same time, and I find that if you use the design thinking process to actually fill out this charter, you can either do it by yourself or you can do it in a group of people. But with that said, all the arguments, and I call them argument, like, because argument to me is not a negative. An argument is needed to create things, and all the arguments, everything that you need to do concerns, all of it will be ironed out within this first phase.
It's
The
a planning
second
phase. That's cool.
phase, and then after that, it becomes the alpha phase. The alpha phase is like, okay, we have something, but we're not sure, so let's get it out there in limited capacity just to see how people feel about it. If people don't like it, then it goes back to the phase one, right? It if people like if people like the alpha phase, then it goes into the beta phase. The beta phase is now goes out to a little bit more people outside of our circles, and like once people like that, then it goes into the launch and operation phase and monitoring phase. Right, but yeah, so that's the whole system. And then the way creative UTO is like, one thing that I noticed is, or one thing that is built into this system is that workshops, right? Like, so you need to go through a certain series of workshops before you mature enough to be able to actually be the one in charge of saying, hey, I want to start a project and I need this person, that person, this person, right? So you need to mature through that. So that way we don't have someone that comes in on day one and all of a sudden they have all this say, right? Like, and then people
we have a
who have
lot
been
of
there.
ideas, and okay.
Yeah, right? Like, so people who have been there for like 5 months or so, like, won't feel alienated because of that. Like, the people who have been there have earned their stripes, I guess.
So how do you stop it from being like a pyramid scheme where there's like, you know what I mean, like where there's like these people on top, they know what's going on, and there's a group of people who they trained, like this set is doing well, but then if you come in too late, then you're just like, maybe you're participating in workshops, but you're never ending up with the credence to pull people to do, like, there's only so many resources that I'm not sure what the resources you have as a group are. Whether you have funding or whether you have independent people who are investors, but even if you have none of those things, there's still only like fund resources in terms of time and talent and interest. So like, how do you, or is there a point where you stop and you say, okay, we actually have our like core group, and now we're gonna, or is this a model where you're, okay, we've got our core group and now we're going to set this group over here and they're going to continue functioning, and this new group's going to come up and we're going to set them up for success and then set them off and out into the world? And because in that, like in the second scenario, I would want like, you definitely want like grant writing workshops for people.
Yeah.
But then you again come into the problem of competition. Now your groups are competing for the same grants.
Definitely. So to stop it from being a pyramid scheme, like, it goes into explaining what you said with the groups. Like, there are gonna be different groups who are working on completely different projects from each other. So one thing that is built into every single project that we do, it will have 3 levels of compensation. Right, so each project will always compensate the community at large all the time. So so that's one of the levels. The second level is the people that kind of helped out. So for example, say me and person B are working on a project, and you come in and you say, hey, we ask you to help paint or something like that. That means you fall into the second tier of compensation. But
yeah,
then
you're a contributor, but no, okay, yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, definitely. And then the creators of the project, they get the most out of the compensation because they're the creators. It's their baby. They're working on it the most, right? And by doing that, it allows for someone like you. So one thing I found working working out of workspaces is that sometimes people are like, they don't want to help with someone else's project because they know they're not going to get money out of it, right? And they're not being greedy or they're not being money hungry. The problem is that them working on your project means that they're not working on their own project, so they're not making money. So therefore, the flow of information stops, right? And so therefore, that's why I built in that flow of information. Now, in terms of the way it works is you come in, you do your workshops, and you start off as a normal artist who would participate in projects. Eventually, you do the workshops, and eventually, when you have enough workshops under your belt, you are now eligible to actually host your own workshops. And once you get past that level of hosting your own workshops, you now become this person that can create a project. So you basically become a project manager. Now, the way projects work is they all have their own, so one of the things, the two things that this business model canvas asks is what is the cost of it and what is the revenue stream. So each project would have figured out those things before it even starts. So are we going to get a grant for this project? Are we going to get investors for this project? Or because we have the gallery, it makes it easy for us to okay, well, is this project a art show? Okay, so since it's an art show, we don't have to worry about the upfront cost. We just have to worry about the people coming in at the art show and paying their money for their art show. Right, that's all built in. And then the other thing is just selling art itself. My goal is to get artists like yourself to be selling in the $4,000 to $10,000. But doing that also falls into those three categories. A art piece that sells for $4,000, it goes back into the community at large. It goes back, you obviously get the most out of that portion, but if someone contributed, then they get some of that portion, and then the community at large gets that portion as well, gets some of that portion as well.
When you say the community, you mean sort of okay, so that goes back to are there people who are on salary? Are there is it that there's fees and everyone's fees get waived if there's a big sale? I mean, how does that physical community around the art gallery?
So your fees, I find your fees, the second tier would always be your fees. So if you're contributing, for example, someone asks you to paint for their project, then your fee would be your fee. Your fee would be your fee. And the people who are creating their project, their fee, or they would get a percentage out of it. So the thing about all of this is that it is all commission based. It is mainly commission based, but because it's a project, because it's because we're all collaborating together and it's a project, I believe that we can all prosper from this. Based on this system, I believe that if 5 people were to sit down together for 5 hours working on this, within this structure, within 5 hours they would be able to start generating income, pretty much right away. But it's just a matter of being organized and being able to follow the system proper, so that we can all prosper and collaborate together and prosper and make and have the freedom to be artists, right? Because we're sharing our resources, it gives us more time to just be ourselves, be artists, be free from the 9 to 5. Right? Just be free from the 9 to 5. I hope that answered your question.
It does. I can also look into it more. Right? I'm sure the information's on your website. I should go because my partner's probably yes.
Yeah. No worries.
Extra. I think we talked for 2 hours. This is like podcast length. That was a long. Yeah. You must be getting into the rhythm of talking to people where it stays you can keep people on topic, but let them express themselves. It must be very interesting to refine that skill set as an interviewer.
Yeah, well, this is my third one. You're my third one. You're my third interview. You're my second. The first one was done by Adrian, the gallery owner.
Mm.
So it is a learning experience on my own. But I'm a person. I just let you talk, let you be like it's your interview, all right? Like it's about
Interesting.
you. It's not about me. It's about you. And I will, yeah. I, I I follow your flow. Like there were a lot more questions on that list, but you were so thorough in answering questions that a lot of them I just skipped by them. It was like you've been here for hours just speaking with few questions, so that's dope. Another one I asked all the questions, right? Like so. It is a learning experience, but it is a matter of keeping balance. And I find that I have the fortune of being able. I guess I'm better at conversations than I thought. So like
Mhm.
I'm really happy about that. So that's dope.
Well, think about like your values in terms of conversation. It's like coming back to like staying with conversations for years, right? Like being allowing yourself to being pulled back into a conversation that's many years old. You know, like a
Yeah.
high value of the people that you're talking to, or you remember the conflicts, but you remember the people you've worked with. And
Mm-hmm.
then like um, the idea of being a peacemaker and the way that you define that just really sounded like someone who is looking for a way to connect things.
Yeah.
So like, oh, you two are disagreeing. You're not really disagreeing. You know, you have 90% of the what you're saying actually kind of fits together, and this other 10%, like that's the peacemaker role. As so those are like conversationally very generous
Yeah. Yeah.
points
Yeah.
of view. So it makes sense that you would. Yeah, I'm actually kind of good at this because your role as an interviewer and your role as internet commenter who views himself as a peacemaker and values a long conversation, like those two things go together.
Mm-hmm.
So I can imagine that like these will get easier. You'll be like, oh, hey, I'm really good at this. But
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
you'll
thank you.
you'll know
Thank you
when
so
you.
much.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so
Yeah.
much. This feels
It's
like a
been
great.
amazing.